Good evening, everyone. We're going to begin tonight's meeting with our school improvement plans. I believe do we have 5 schools? 6 schools presenting? And we'll start with the McCarthy. Immediately following those, we will go into our an executive session and then regular school committee meeting. So we're going to move forward with the McCarthy. If you'd like to come up and present. Thank you.
Okay, welcome, Mrs. Tolley. We have a clicker there, and you can move forward. Just make sure it's in the on, and all you have to do is hit the button with a little person on it, and your light will turn red, and you can begin. Okay, this is McCarthy, 2021-2022 School Improvement Plan.
Can I take my mask off? Okay. Thank you. Thank you. So I'm going to start with demographics, maybe. There we go. So the demographics from the McCarthy School have changed just a little bit. We have increased our students with disabilities, our high needs have gone up, and our economically disadvantaged have also increased from one year to the next. And I think it's also pretty representative of sort of the economy and where we are in life right now. Our enrollment, all right, clearly not very good with the clicker. Thank you. Enrollment, I know we did not need to include it, but I just chose to include it because I think the McCarthy School is very unique compared to our other schools. And we have a really large preschool population. Last year we had 72 preschoolers in the fall, and we were up to 116 preschoolers in the springtime. And this fall we're already starting with 104 preschool students. So the preschool is just over a third of our entire population at the school. And we very much appreciate having an early childhood coordinator to help us with all of that. So our celebrations and areas for focus. Celebrations, you know, we have so much to celebrate this year. Our kids walk in the door so excited to come to school. They're ready to learn and they're happy to be there. And the teachers are too, and I think that's our biggest asset and the strongest thing that we have going for us. Last year we had some really strong data around growth for all of our students in all academic areas. And last year we really started to put into place some English language arts curriculums to help enhance our learning. We added phonics in grades preschool and 2nd and 3rd, and we added phonemic awareness in kindergarten and 1st grade. And then areas of focus, we have a lot to continue to build on. We are still continuing our work in literacy. We have a lot of work to continue it in math, and so we're excited to have the district the new, it's not new, but the scope and sequence for math and the common assessment, so that way we can really be diving deeper into that. And we really feel like this year we want to bring parents back into the school, and that's a big focus for us, is to have parents part of their children's learning. For some data, I know this is an overwhelming slide because there'll be 3 different pieces of Mcas data on there. It's there we go. So I chose to put 3rd grade math, 4th grade math, and 5th grade math on one slide, just because it helps to sort of look at trends over time. And math, it clearly shows we have a lot of work to do. And you can tell all of our numbers in exceeding and meeting have dropped, and our numbers in partially meeting and not meeting have increased. And so we've got a lot of work to do to get our students moving in the right direction. I think remote learning was really hard for them to learn math, and I know from the feedback I got from parents, it was really hard for parents to support math. So we're happy to have our kids in school to learn math this year. English language arts, the next slide, shows a little bit more of growth. If you look at our 3rd grade, we started to do a little bit of writing, work in writing. And you can see that our number of students exceeding in 3rd grade is 20%, and that's huge, and that just shows how much writing impacts your Mcas scores. And so we only scratch the surface of our work in that, and we're going to really start to continue that this year. Last year, we had a lot of conversations around what is the actual state expectation for writing and what do those exemplars look like. And so that was a big reality check. And so this year now we're really working towards those. And we think that that will help us to really improve our Mcas scores overall, but most importantly, it will help to improve writing and improve the communication skills of our students. Our next piece of data is the STAR data. And from last spring to this fall, our STAR data really went down, which sort of talks a little bit about that summer slide. So when we look at our Mcas scores, they were very relevant for our STAR data in the spring. And our STAR data now really shows summer slide, and it shows all the possibilities for growth. And I think, you know, that's sort of a big focus for us, is just the possibilities for growth and for learning. So when you look at the next slide, sort of goes back to the district vision of hope, which is what we're really focused on, is that possibility for us to have our students continue their learning, and really also not just the learning, but utilizing those facts and skills that they're learning so that they're able to have deep conversations and write about it. So our first goal is in the area of professional practice goal, and it's in the area of building a community. And there's really two parts to it for us. The first part is it's about building relationships between staff and families, really bringing families back into their children's learning, not in the sense like they were involved last year with helping with remote learning, but being part of the celebrations, coming to school to see writing celebrations, coming to school to see the different kinds of learning that's happening. And then our second goal is around professional learning communities, and that's really about giving the teachers opportunities to talk about student learning and to bring student data and plan for it. And so those are, you know, sort of our two goals there. And then our last goal is around student learning. And we'd like to have 75% of our students meeting or exceeding grade level expectations on STAR data. And based on the growth that we have last year, we're hopeful that we'll get there. It may be a really high goal, but if our students continue to learn like they did last year, we know that they're going to make at least a year's worth of progress, and if not more. And so that's the way that we're just going to continue. And we have a lot of things that we're going to continue to do that we started last year. Which is around continuing our conversations around writing and expanding that into all the content areas. I've seen this year just a lot of writing in science and social studies and in math. And so we're seeing our kids write more and building their stamina. It's kind of funny to hear our second graders talk about writing stamina, but it's also a great thing to hear them talking about that. And so we're going to continue with that. We're going to continue looking at their STAR data, doing progress monitoring, having data team meetings, and then using PLC times for the teachers to be able to look at that instruction, look at that data and plan instruction. And then the last way we will support that is through student and staff support. And that's where we're going to look at our personalized learning opportunities, and sort of when the teachers have their lunch, there's a part of the lunch where there's 20 minutes of overlap, and then there's one person watching two classrooms. And so we've taken that and made that our personalized learning time. And that's where they're looking to practice either ST Math or Renaissance or things like that, or Lexia, and really focus in on the skills that they need. We're also looking to continue to improve our MTSS and look at our Tier 2 and Tier 3 supports. We're also continuing our work with students making goals for themselves and celebrating their goals. So if you ever hear a really strange bell ringing, that's a student who met their goal at the McCarthy. And then we're trying every way we can. And then we also take their picture and send that home to families so that, you know, again, families are part of that process. They might have missed that they missed the goal, but they get to see a picture of them ringing the bell. And so those are the big ways that we're looking to move towards our goals for this year. And then I just want to thank the school site council. We have Nancy Cheris, Brittany, Melissa, and Dave Gamache. So we want to thank them. And then do you have any questions? All right.
Okay, thank you very much. Great job. It really shows that the writing makes a huge difference. 20% of third graders exceeding expectations is really a great accomplishment, especially in a pandemic year. So we will move right along. Next up, we have the Burke Elementary School. And with us tonight for the Burke, we have Principal Beacott, and we have our Assistant Principal, Ms. Chanette. Okay. So just hit the red button, the button on the right.
This one? Oh, look at, there I'm on, okay. It's nice to see everybody. Thanks for having us this evening. We are happy to be able to share some updates about the Burke School and let you know a little bit more about what we're working on this year. Happy to have Ms. Chanette here, so a new face for us, but certainly somebody who's jumped in and joined our team right away. So Ms. Chanette's actually going to start and talk about the demographic data.
Okay, so our high needs are 33.7%, so a little bit lower than the state. Economically disadvantaged at 18%, English language learners at 4.8%, and special education a little bit higher than the district and the state at 23.3%.
Our enrollment data has stayed pretty much the same, but in the next week we are flagged to get 5 new students. So we will have a few more students next week. A transition for us this year was that we did go from 3 fifth grades to 2 fifth grades, just dependent upon our numbers. So now we have 2 sections of every grade level.
Some things to celebrate about the Burke School. We had a high family participation on parent orientation. It looks as though parent-teacher conferences will also be a great turnout, and we've already had a couple PTO events that was a hit at our school. We have strong communication between home and school utilizing Class Dojo and Aspen, and a collaborative professional culture. For curriculum and instruction, strong assessments to drive instruction. We use our data to kind of decide how to tier our instruction. New math curriculum supplies using ST Math, Freckle. Implementation of the Hegarty Phonemic program curriculum. We started using that throughout our classrooms. And monthly, the academic leadership team meets to review school data trends. Focus areas, equity. We're creating a learning experience that are accessible and engaging to all students across all learning environments. New to the Burke this year is the co-teaching model. So 8 out of 12 classrooms have a full-time general educator and full-time special educator in the classroom, as long as a paraprofessional. We're increasing a sense of connection for all students, and I think the co-teaching is going to help us reach that. Curriculum and instruction, identifying intervention tools for math, reading, and writing. Work to implement and train staff on interventions. Foundations, K-2, working on implementing that and providing as needed PD for that. Building close reading across content, and building expressive language across content with reciprocal teaching and number talks, especially in math.
All right, so I think it's important to, we added this slide last year too, but to remember that the data that came in really is reflective of a very unique time for our students. And one of the things that we've certainly seen as students come back and has been something that has been a huge topic of conversation amongst teachers is that our regular teaching strategies that we normally would have used with students last year, small group instruction, proximity, lots of the things that we know to be essential tools, we couldn't do them based out of restrictions of spacing and things like that. So it has been very refreshing this year to walk into classrooms and to hear the conversation that we really felt like was missing a lot last year. So we are very excited to welcome that back into the school. So instead of hearing very quiet classrooms, we're hearing very active learning classrooms with kids talking to each other. And I think that's the biggest driver that we're going to see this year is kids' opportunity to engage and to talk with one another. So engagement already is increasing. So here is our Mcas data. So on the first slide, you will see here is our Mcas data for ELA in grades 3, 4, and 5. So that you can see here, we certainly did have an impact with our students that were meeting. We did go down in 3rd grade. However, in 4th grade in ELA, we actually had more students meet than we had in 2019. We did see certainly that we had more kids not meeting, which we did expect. And in grade 5 for MCAS for ELA last year, you can see that we did have increase in the amount of students who were exceeding from 2019. We did see a little bit of a dip in those students meeting, and you can see a large portion of our students falling in the partially meeting and not meeting category, which we expected coming into seeing the data. In math for grades 3, 4, and 5, if you look at the top, you can see our grade 3. So we did have a slight increase in the amount of students who were exceeding in grade 3. We actually had a large amount of students, 56%, who did meet. So we did see an increase there last year. In grade 4, we had an increase as well in students who were exceeding, and we had 51% of our students meeting. So we also saw an increase there, which is fantastic in the year that we had last year. In grade 5, you can see we did have an increase in the amount of students who were exceeding. We did not have as many students meet in grade 5, and we did see an increase in the amount of students not meeting. But there are some positive things to come out of this data with students moving between categories as well. Here's our science data. So you can see that we did have a slight increase in the amount of students who were exceeding. We had a drop in the students that were meeting and not meeting. So have some work to do there as well.
Some areas of strength, grade 3, 15% above the state and students meeting expectations. Grade 4, 16% above the state and students meeting expectations in ELA. And math, grade 3 was 10% above the state and students meeting expectations. Grade 4 was 14% above the state and students meeting expectations. And grade 5 was also 10% above the state with students meeting expectations.
Areas of growth in ELA in grade 5, we did fall 4% below the state in students meeting expectations. There was a decrease in students exceeding expectations as well. In math, grade 4, we were 7% above the state in students not meeting. So we were higher in the amount of students not meeting. In grade 5, we saw a 15% decrease in the students meeting expectations. So we're back to our vision as a district of hope, which takes us into our goals.
So our professional practice goal focuses on building a community. By June 2022, the Burke School will have developed and implemented school-wide expectations for behavior, systems for behavioral support, reinforcement of positive behaviors, and systems of communications for students, families, and staff, and increase students' connections at school, and see an increase in student attendance. This work will be measured by classroom walkthroughs, teacher observations, data collected from positive Tier 1 behaviors, and a reduction of office referrals for unexpected or inappropriate behaviors by 5% measured by the data.
Ways that we're going to meet our goals this year. One of our goals over the last few years in doing some self-assessment is that we have been able to create a common language of expected behaviors for Tier 1 behaviors. So we want to get that further on paper so that that is there, especially for all new staff as they come into the building. We have developed an acronym across the Burke School for school-based expectations, which we refer to as ROARs. So at the beginning of every school year, our classroom teachers sit with students, and they talk about what do those expectations of responsibility, ownership, what do those things look like across each area of the school? What does it sound like? What does it look like to be respectful of the cafeteria? What does it look like to be respectful on the playground? And so we take each part of that apart so that students are aware of what that looks like. We utilize our classroom meetings to discuss what the expectations look like I said. We want to develop a system further to acknowledge Tier 1 behaviors. So we've always had students come down and we've acknowledged them with high fives for positive things that they've done throughout the school, but also building what do those systems look like within individual classrooms. One area that through our self-assessment that we were able to see was also a need for us to formalize what Tier 1 and Tier 3 supports look like in regards to behavior. And how to monitor student progress in the area of behavior. So that's something we're working on. We have implemented monthly assemblies again, focusing on students sharing their work. So each month a different grade level presents something that they're working on within the classroom. We've also developed monthly school spirit days. One of the things that we've seen, especially because we do house the language-based and the Pathways program for the city, is that we do have a lot of children that come to the Burke that it's not their home school. And so them feeling connected, they might not be at PTO events or things like that. So really trying to figure out ways that we help them really feel like the ownership in their school and invested in school. So having those school spirit days, they were really created this year by grade level teams. So that they're rolling it out to the school and implementing them so all kids feel an opportunity to participate in something like that. We are developing a survey to go home to families just to make sure that our pulse on who is involved in PTO-based events is truly accurate in figuring out ways that we can support families who may not be able to attend regularly, because we think that's really important for our school community. Our benchmarks, I started to mention them, but by September, the leadership team would present ROARs on common behavior expectations to staff. By October, all classroom teachers will have defined our ROARs expectations. We have the monthly recognition of students receiving high fives. So if you come into the Burke School, you'll see them all over the office. By October 15th, create and implement a survey of engagement for families. So that's ready to go home to families this week. And collect and analyze pre and post data on students earning positive reinforcement and data collection to see how many students participate in our school spirit days. Our hope is that that increases over time so students are feeling more connected. The connectedness piece for us is huge this year. That is a part of the acceleration roadmap from the state, and so that's something we really are focusing on.
Our student learning goal focuses on equity and access. By June 2022, the Burke School will continue to increase equity and access for all students by demonstrating progress in the areas of curriculum instruction and assessment, student and staff support, and social emotional learning as measured by progress towards state objectives in the 2020 to 2023 strategic plan and measured by data, walkthroughs, and student and teacher observations. So we have a school-based academic leadership team that is also part of our turnaround plan. We've spoke before about the Burke School has been identified in need of targeting our assistance for our low socioeconomic subgroups. So part of our work is that we do have an academic leadership team that meets monthly to look at the trends of data across the school to help develop the plan that we submit to the state on the 15th of October yearly right now. We have implemented and will continue to tune our co-teaching across the school. So we have 8 co-taught classrooms this year. We are very happy to have some support from Landmark, as well as Lisa Decker, who's providing professional development and coaching to our teachers in that model, so that teachers are having some coaching as they're kind of making their way through it. I will tell you that we had some really positive feedback from students, as well as listening to teachers who have really dived into the co-teaching and are trying a variety of different co-teaching strategies, and they're doing a great job with it. It's definitely new, but I think that everybody is invested in it being very successful in providing all of our students with the best opportunity we can.
will you go back, Josh? Sorry. We're going to continue to identify high-quality interventions. So that's been a goal of ours, to make sure that we have the tools to provide our multi-system tiers of support. So we did purchase a lot of those last year, specific to the area of comprehension, also comprehension across content. So not just looking at understanding what we read when it's ELA, but also in math, science, and social studies. We're going to continue to implement our assessment calendar, provide professional development to staff in grades K through 2 on foundations. That was a trend that came up last year in remote learning. We think parents are really, really supportive of children and asking them about the books that they read, but the decoding piece for kids is a hard skill for parents to support at home. And that was definitely an area that we felt we had to boost when students in our primary grades came back this year, was the decoding piece. We're going to provide professional development and reciprocal teaching in number talks. We have seen more and more the struggle for kids to engage in academic conversations. And so our hope is that through reciprocal teaching and number talks, we embed more conversation, expressive language to help them better understand what they're learning. We're going to define our system of social-emotional support, which I talked about in our first goal, and continue to make equity and access a regular part of our conversations at the school, in our evaluation system, feedback we give to teachers, and it just becomes part of what we talk about on an ongoing basis. Okay. One of the things we'll continue to also do is close reading. That ties back to the comprehension. So teachers are feeling like they're really strong in close reading, but we've noticed that students aren't carrying it over independently, and we think that's just a need for us to be a little more intentional in the content areas of using it. We're going to dedicate time to review high-quality teaching strategies. So like I talked about, there were things that we felt like we couldn't do last year, small group instruction, things like that. So we're going to embed those back into the classroom this year using guided math as well. So our benchmarks, curriculum and assessment, we're going to utilize the academic leadership team that I talked about, grade level data meetings, to analyze our benchmark data and to create targeted instruction across all of our classrooms. The academic leadership team will meet monthly to review the data and disaggregate the information to staff that 70% of students can show proficiency or exceed grade level expectations. Student support, we're going to continue targeted intervention based on our multi-tiered systems of support and using our data to identify those students and create those plans. We moved to having 4 data meetings throughout the year. Social emotional learning, by February, the academic leadership team and staff will have worked together to create a flow chart of social emotional support, identifying tiers of intervention, which we mentioned previously as well. All right, so as always, thank you to all of you for your support. Thank you to our school council. We have Alexandra D'Entremont is a teacher at the school. Myself, our school nurse, is also a parent leader, so she is part of our school council. Michelle Stefanello, a parent leader. Bonnie Chenette, assistant principal, and Susie Miller, teacher. And again, thank you to all of you. Thank you to our families for their continued support as well. Any questions? I feel like that's a lot. I'm sorry. I feel bad to talk at people.
Okay, thank you very much. Very excited about the work that you're doing this year, and excited to hear reports back maybe later this year about the co-teaching model and how that's expanding. And I really appreciate the work you're doing around the connectedness of kids to school and families if they're not living in the neighborhood, really trying to make them connected. So great job, and we're very excited to hear how it goes. So thank you. Okay, next up we have Mrs. King from the Brown School.
Good evening, everyone. All right, so I'm going to summarize a little bit more. I'm taking this very seriously, but my son has flag football tonight, if that's okay with everybody. So the first is the demographics, and we continue to have a lot of students with disabilities, and our high needs is 54.9%. So that's kind of our biggest area of focus. That high needs is a combination of two categories, so that's kind of where we're focusing our attention. And the thought being, if those students get what they need through our instruction models, it benefits everybody, even those who don't fall into that category. So, all right, our celebrations. We have a lot that we've been celebrating this year. We have our Bulldog Pride, which is our PBIS motto. We did a lost and found activity with the staff, reflecting over the past year and a half of the things that we've lost as teachers and what we've found, which has kind of shaped our year this year, which has been positive. We're continuing to use our makerspace. We've gotten the Haggerty Phonics for a couple of grade levels now. Some of our classrooms are using the flipped classroom model that was based on what we found, which is good. Back to our all-school assemblies, which is great. I have to have a shout out. I feel like I owe a shout out. We have our Randy Lemanager Memorial Playground. We have the ribbon cutting dedication ceremony this Saturday. So we're excited that we're finally there, and thanks to everyone who has helped with that. That's been, it's on there twice. That's how important it is. I didn't realize that. And then what we're focusing on, we're working on our accelerated learning, focusing on our MTSS, which is the combination of PBIS and RTI, a lot of acronyms. We are considered a school that is requiring assistance through DESE's Targeted Assistance Grant. That is based on the data from 2019. We did not take Mcas in 2020, and then the Mcas from 2021 didn't count, so it didn't help us or hurt us. So we're kind of stuck in the rut, but we're making lemonade out of those lemons and doing positive stuff with that grant. Just kind of reading every other one. All right, so I have 3 slides, grade 3 MCAS. It does show a slight dip from 2019's data to 2021's data in both ELA and math. Like I said to Dr. Vidala, though, the interesting thing is I expected a much more drastic dip after having a year and a half of interrupted learning. So it was actually quite reassuring to see that we held as strong as we could have, and that the teachers did and the families did as much as they could have. So lots of things to continue to work on and strive for, but we're holding strong. Same goes for grade 4. And then same goes for grade 5. Oh, you're getting it, Dr. Vanali. You're a flag football fan? All right, and we also put in some STAR data too. The STAR data shows that we have actually more work to do, kind of like Ms. Atoli was saying. And this is from our fall data, which shows that our kids came in exhausted this year, and I feel like they're working on building up stamina for 5 full days of school. So we're slowly working on transitioning them into being full-time learners again. So this showed a little bit of a need for them to kind of get back into the groove of everything. Then we have 2 goals that connects to the district's goal for hope, one that connects to building a community and one that connects to equity and access. So these were our goals from last year. So I'm not going to read them all because they're the same from last year, but just tweaked. I went over them with my school council last spring, and they felt that we made a lot of progress, but we still had more work to do for the fidelity of the goal. So the building a community goal is to continue to work on our PBIS, which is our motto of the Bulldog Pride, and to kind of take that into the next level. So we identified what the Pride stands for. We rolled it out at some assemblies. We're giving out stickers. But now the next level is how do we collect the data and how do we analyze the data? Last year we called it a soft rollout. So these are all the action steps that talks about how to use this data so it's more than just a fluff thing, so it's actually meaningful and targeted. And then our student learning goal for equity and access is the same as last year as well, but again, a little bit more refined and a little bit more specific. So last year, we started with Emily Moore, monthly data meetings with our grade level teams, going over a wide variety of things from the STAR and STAR reading and STAR math data. It was new to all of us last year. So this year, we're going to dig a little bit deeper into that, and we've already mapped out the year of what all the different months data meetings will be. And then we had about 10 teachers last year get trained in the DataWise cycle. They took a course through Harvard Extension. So we're going to integrate the language of that into our data meetings to make them a little bit more focused and grounded. Because the goal will be making sure that there's an impact on instruction. But we just skipped over that one. So here's my school council. We have a couple new teachers this year. All the family members are the same, and our community member is the same. So they're all looking forward to getting these goals we've already met. We're meeting the first Tuesday of every month at 8 a.m. We already met in October and reviewed some of the Mcas data. They have seen this plan and are excited to move forward. Any questions?
Thank you, Mrs. King. And just looking at the STAR reading data and STAR math data that you showed, having 50% of the kids already at the benchmark compared to last year, where at this time last year we were looking at 25 to 30% across all schools because the kids had just missed 3 months of school. And so now a year later, after the hybrid and then coming back full time, it's so great to see that we're already at 50%, and we know that that's after a summer slide. So I'm really excited to see the work that you and your team will do, because we're already starting way ahead of where we were last year. So it's a huge credit to what was done in the spring and throughout all of last year. So even though there's some work to do on Mcas, I feel like that STAR reading data has shown us that we're starting way ahead of where we were last year. So great job with that.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay, and next up we have Dr. Higgins from the South.
Good evening, everyone. I do not have a flag football game, but I will try to move just as quickly as Mrs. King did to present our plan. So, our demographic data has stayed fairly consistent in each of the 4 categories mentioned, closer to the state averages than what we see in the district. Also, the enrollment data, there was a slight dip last year, as to be expected, particularly preschool and kindergarten, and that kind of upticked about halfway back up. I'd expect next year to be similar to the 1920 enrollment data. Celebrations, the people is what makes the South School special. When you talk about the students, teachers, parents, that environment, that family engagement is definitely the strength of our school. Focus area, not an area of weakness, I want to stress, but focus, of course, around curriculum and instruction to not only catch up, but to accelerate the learning of all of our students in the upcoming school year. If you take a look at the ELA data, it was interesting to compare 2019, the year prior to COVID, to afterwards. Interestingly, in grades 4 and 5, we actually had improved performance in meeting and exceeding, and we have a big group to work at our current 4th graders, last year's 3rd grade, with partially meeting. We want to kind of bump them up into that meeting exceeding category. So a lot of things to build off of information here with the ELA. Also with math, similar was interesting to look at. It was much closer than you'd probably anticipate. You'd probably expect to see a bigger drop the year prior, but actually in a couple of the grade 5, we actually had higher score in 2021, as well as about the same average in grade 4. So again, obviously a lot of changes between 19 and 21, but the data was more competitive than I guess you'd expect between the 2 years. And the last slide is in regards to science, and again, 35% compared to 33%. So there was some consistency there, which pointed to some good signs, but obviously lots of room for us to do some work. When we broke it down into the state averages, there's 7 tests that we took. On 5 of the tests, we either met or slightly exceeded the state average. So again, using that as a barometer, we were pretty happy with that. Particularly grade 4 ELA had a very strong performance. The students' average score met the expectation, so we're really happy with that. Areas of concern, again, grade 3 ELA, grade 5 science, we're trending a little bit below, so we're definitely going to focus our resources and attention in that area. So things we're happy about overall, but certainly a lot of work that we identified moving forward. Here's our goals that are very closely aligned with the district goals, which I'm happy about. I'm happy that our goals are the same. Again, this year, I think too often we bounce around year to year, but we're going to have the same 2 goals as we've had in the past. And I think that we can build off of them and add new parts. So you see the professional practice goal first. That is the exact same as last year, and we have to update that date a little bit, but student culture, adult culture, parent engagement. The key steps that you can see, one thing that I'll show you in the next slide, well, before I show you the next slide, one area that we're going to point to, and I know my colleagues talked about this, is we want to get our parents back into the school. It was really hard last year. We're welcoming, we want people in, and last year was tough not being able to do that. So this year what we're going to do at each grade level, we're going to have at least 2 open houses where we're going to bring in just that grade level into our gym and do a student-led activity with them. So let the students kind of either show off their work or a different project, and let the parents kind of have that time to collaborate with them and have that special time that we missed. So we're really looking forward to that. So we already have one scheduled next week in 2nd grade, and it'll be good to have the parents back in again and collaborating with the families. The next slide I wanted to show you is just, it talked a little bit about our STEM initiative. This just is happening last week as far as building this, and I just wanted to show you real quick. It's wonderful. I have to give all the credit to my assistant principal, Jocelyn Sullivan. She wrote a lot of the grants to get this and physically hung up a lot of the materials that you see here. But when you look at that top middle slide, the conversation those children are having is really what it's all about. What are the different ways we can solve this, if I move this piece here? And so it's a lot of the problem solving, STEM activities, and sticking with it. So it's not just playing games, it's actually learning with one another, strategy, problem solving, and so the hallways have really come alive. Last year I talked about the sensory walks and the sensory wall and things like that. So we're really pleased with the progress that you've seen in our main hallway at the school. Again, our student learning goal is very similar to last year with our 75% goal on district and state assessments. And when we look at the key action steps, we're really excited that the district, Dr. Chase and Dr. Vidala, have coordinated professional learning communities that we're really going to utilize. Instead of having informal type of meetings here and there when we had time, we have these planned out at least each month, happens more often at the school level, to really take a hard look at the data, make adjustments going forward. And so we're really happy with that work. So again, our goals at the school level is very closely aligned with the district, and I think that's when you see the most improvement taking place. And finally, I just want to make sure I recognize also the members of our council, different teaching staff, and our 2 parents, Andrea Del Piero and Maria Skinner. So thank you. If there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them at this time.
Thank you, Dr. Higgins. Definitely excited to hear about the parents coming in, especially getting the small group, really bringing that connectedness in. And I think everyone agrees that we love the slide with the students playing around with that interactive hallway and the problem solving that they're having. So it's great to see kids back engaging with each other and starting to bring the parents back. So thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you, everybody.
Okay, and next up we have Mr. Busey from the Higgins.
Good evening, everybody. Nice to be back here. Nice to see everybody. So this is our school improvement plan for 21-22. As my colleagues have done earlier, the demographic slide is the first one. I put last year's 2020 data in parentheses in that first column, just so you could see the changing demographics, especially in those first 2 categories. Other than that, we're pretty much a microcosm of the state here at Higgins. The enrollment has stayed, we're a little lower overall this year, but if you see the cohort models from 6 to 7 and 7 to 8, pretty much in line with what it's been over the past several years. So a few celebrations and some focus areas for this year. One of our goals last year was to look at increasing access to higher level classes. And we came up with an alternate pathway to algebra last year, which allowed about 30 additional students to take algebra this year. And also, one of the things that we wanted to do in our focus on writing, because this is also on the focus area side, is to have a class in each cluster in the 7th grade that is focused on writing. So the kids with a propensity for writing and who showed an enthusiasm for it are now in this class. There's about 100 to 120 kids that have access to that class this year. We also took a lot of pride in trying to keep it as normal as possible last year, continuing those moving on ceremonies, and the wonderful PTO did a 8th grade celebration at the end of the year. So we wanted to try to keep it feeling as normal as possible, because kids, they really want the structure, and they wanted to make it feel to them as typical as it could be. On the focus side, writing, as you'll see in the next slide, I believe, we'll focus on that this year and increased actual writing instruction in the classroom. We also are excited this year to have some more data to be able to look at this year. We're using star reading and math as my elementary colleagues have been using for a while. So to have that this year, along with a management system, which Mastery Connect allows us to connect our common assessments to the standards, and then to have a person in our new curriculum and assessment instructional coach to tie it all together for us. We're really excited about that this year. So this is from grade 7 ELA from last year, and I highlighted that to the left-hand side of the graph. You'll notice that most of the graph, if you look at the state and the district or the school's performance, it's pretty much the same. It's a tick above or a tick below. But those first 4, those are all the writing questions. So you can see that we are consistently a couple of notches below the state in those writing questions. So that is what is sort of driving our focus on writing, as it has been in the past. But now we have a little bit more, especially with that 7th grade writing class. So a little bit, I know you've seen the data. Dr. Chase did a presentation a couple of weeks ago, so I won't spend too much time on this. We are pretty much, when it comes to grade 6, especially ELA and math, pretty much in line with the state, as you can see in both of those. Not being in line with the state means that we had a little bit of a drop from 2019 to 2021. But it's also important to remember every time that we do this, that this is not a cohort comparison. So these kids that took the test in 2021, they were in 4th grade in 2019. So it's just grade to grade. It's like comparing apples to oranges. But it helps us with trying to see, especially this year, it will help us in determining whether or not some of the trends we see in our Mcas data also match the trends that we see in the STAR reading and math in our common assessments. So it will be more helpful for us moving forward. Grade 7 ELA and math are pretty much the same. They're in line with the state, and they're a little bit of a drop in each of those for us between 19 and 21. Grade 8, this is the grade where we see, it's interesting, so grade 3 and grade 8 appear to be the 2 grades we saw the biggest change across the state. Our scores are pretty comparable to the state, with a little bit of a dip, especially in that not meeting expectations for our kids in 8th grade last year. But grade 8 math is really where you see it. So this would be, in my opinion, this is the slide that demonstrates how important it is that kids are in the classroom in front of teachers. Because if you take a look at that graph on the bottom right-hand slide, you see that march upward every year from 17 to 18 to 19, especially in that exceeding expectations. And grade 8 math was always one of the ones that I was here talking about how well they've done, and it's sort of the shining star for us. And then last year, when our kids are not in school, this is what happens when they don't have those quality teachers in front of them every day. That next slide, oh, sorry, I don't want to shortchange science. Could you just jump one ahead, just so that beyond science? Oh, it's not in, I made that so there's a slide that I put in the presentation that I guess I didn't put in the right presentation. I'll hold it up. Yeah, this is what it looks like, but we'll get it to you. But there are 3 questions that you'll see. This is an item analysis from grade 8 math There are 3 questions that we are significantly above the state, 8, 9 points above the state. Those 3, they're all in the Pythagorean theorem, by the way. Those are all standards that were addressed in math class in 8th grade after April 7th, after we came back last year. So if we had been here throughout the entire year and kids had been here in person 5 days a week, I think you would have seen that type of performance from our 8th grade kids as we have in all of the past years. All right, sorry, Dr. Vidal. As Dr. Higgins mentioned, we're excited this year to have our goals match the district goals, and then also individual teacher goals match the goals of the school and the district. So here's our learning goal, our equity and access goal. It's actually 2, well, actually 3. There's one on the next slide too. Instead of focusing on 75% of all students demonstrating either growth or exceeding or meeting expectations, we decided to look at the assessments themselves because we have so many more this year that we want to focus on making sure that those assessments are tied to standards. So we're looking to see that growth in 75% of the assessments. So if you're a kid, typical kid here, you're taking your 16 common assessments, your 2 Mcas, 3 in the 8th grade, and star reading or math 3 times. You're talking about 21 different periods over the course of the year where we're getting some information about how the learning is going. So we're looking to see about 16 or 17 of those where a student is demonstrating that they're meeting expectations or showing some growth. We also we're taking a look at attendance because it's important for our kids to be in school. It's a little bit tricky when we still have a situation where we're encouraging kids who are not feeling well, obviously, to not be here. So we're going to make sure that those that can be here are here, and we're going to focus on that being on time for school as sort of a way to get those kids' attendance numbers up too. And then finally, social emotional learning. We took the CELIS survey at the end of last year. There are 5 categories. What we want to do is we want to see some improvement or increased positive responses, I should say, for 3 out of those 5 dimensions on that CELIS survey. And there are some of the key actions we talked about. We're excited to have that curriculum and instructional data coach with us this year, the re-entry of our collaborative time this year for teachers to be able to talk about a lot of that increased data that we have. And when it comes to attendance, we're going to be looking at some of those on time for school initiatives this year. Test and stay has been huge in keeping kids in school. Kids that normally would have to be quarantined for a week or more are able to stay in school thanks to that program. So we're right there as helping with our goal. And then that return to a normal schedule with a full slate of extracurricular activities and lunches and everything the way it should be. We're as close to normal as we can possibly be, with one exception, but we'll get there. And we are excited to be able to provide that this year. And finally, the professional practice goal. Now that we're back with our collaborative learning time, we are creating SMART goals in each one of our departments, which match the district goal, which match the school goals. So for example, when we're talking about that 75%, Dr. Vidal's goal with the district is 75% of kids meeting or exceeding expectations. Ours is on the 75% of assessments. So grade 6 ELA, for example, made a goal this year, grade 6 English Language Arts, developed a goal that they want to see 75% of their kids either showing growth or meeting expectations in 3 specific standards. So they'll digging down a little deeper to what our bigger picture goal is and what the district's even bigger picture goal is. So it's nice to have that alignment so that everyone is moving in the same direction. And I got to mention most of those things. Questions at the next slide are Reimagine School Improvement Council this year. So this was a combination of last year's, and we have a few holdovers and some new folks on the council this year. So I want to thank them and thank all of you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Busey. And, I think it's really great that you have this really clear alignment that's going on here at the Higgins, you know, from the district goals all the way down to the teacher goals. And I really like that they're collaborating and making team goals. So I think that's really important. And looking at your 8th grade math data, which was always a feather in the cap, I think by increasing the number of students taking algebra this year, it'll be really exciting to see what that does to move the needle this year. So not only are we have the kids in school every day, but we also have more kids in the advanced class because of that pathway you created last year. So really looking forward to hearing more about that.
Thank you.
Thank you. And last but not least, we have Mrs. Smith from the Carroll School.
Save the best for last, right? I'm sure you're all tired. Well, good evening. Thank you, everyone. So I'm Tracy Smith, the principal at the Carroll School. This is my 9th year at the Carroll, 13 in Peabody. So I'll move on to my demographics. So the Carroll School is pretty high in most of these categories. Our high needs is 64%, so we're well above the district and the state. Same with our economically disadvantaged, 53%, which is higher than the district and the state. Our English language learners is about 19% right now. We have about 110 ELL students at the Carroll. And our special ed percentage right now is at 14%, which is a little below the district and the state. So our numbers have been pretty consistent the last couple of years. Last year we had a total of 562. This year we have 557. The numbers from last year at the end of the year, so I'm sure those will go up significantly. We'll get on average another 20 students by the end of the year. So our Mcas data, I feel like we should just boom, 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 go right over it. Unlike, I think, some of my colleagues, I actually see a big win in this for the Carroll School. I will tell you that when we went out in March, we had kids that we couldn't find until June that had to pack up and go to different countries and live with grandparents and didn't have Wi-Fi. So that was a few months. And then last year, you know, the kids were only in school 2 physical days a week. And the students that we have at the Carroll really need that in-person learning. So although we are a little bit below the district and the state in some of our scores, I was very impressed with how well the kids did, as well as that Mcas is really one snapshot in one day that they take this test. And so, you know, there's a lot that goes on in kids' lives. So I'm very impressed at how well they did. I know how hard my teachers worked last year. And so I think that should be celebrated. And of course, we will certainly dive deeper into the standards, and that's probably our focus more than what kids did or didn't do. I think that our big focus this year is our kids who are partially meeting expectations, and why are they partially meeting those? What can we do to get them to meet those expectations? So celebrations, professional collaboration. The Carroll School is just a special place to be. And so our daily grade level collaboration, our prep times, because we have such a large school and we have so many, 5 second grades and 5 fourth grades, we've had a hard time making it consistently across the board. And so now we have those times where they have the same prep time, grade levels every day, and that really leans itself to the collaboration and the prep time for teachers to work together. We also have our monthly PLC meetings, which are going fabulous. I think that Emily Moore has taken a great role in trying to help us she's been in the district and help us to be able to look at those places where we need growth as a grade level. Our school culture, so we do a Carroll Community Cares, and that has been driven by my guidance counselor and my adjustment counselor. And so we just had our first rally. I don't know if you saw it on Twitter. It was fabulous. And so we're just doing a video for the K1 and 2 kids, and we're doing a live rally for 3, 4, and 5 because we can't fit them all in one place. And so that's really about focusing on good behavior, certain targets that we want them to work on, being a good friend, working hard in school, attendance falls into that. So it's a kind of a whole school culture that we're really working on. Some of our focus areas, so we're utilizing those PLCs to really look at our ELA and math assessment data, look at our STAR data, our STAR math, our STAR reading, our classroom assessments. And then our instruction, focus on our small group instruction practices and classroom centers to target that personalized learning needs for all of our students. Which brings us to our district vision of hope. So high expectations, optimism, personal learning, and equity and access. So our practice goal is building a community. It's similar to our last year's goal. We're going to continue to work on strong and supportive school community by effectively communicating, collaborating, building upon our strong partnerships within our community. So some of our key actions are just identify our current communication barriers. Obviously, we do have a lot of Portuguese-speaking faculty and staff in the Carroll School, which helps immensely. We're kind of lacking on our Spanish, so we do have someone that comes in on Wednesdays, and we'd like to continue with that a little more, maybe see if we can get someone in and have that part of our community feel a little bit more supported. I mean, we have a great collaboration with Treadwell's. Tom is on my school council, the fire department, the police department. Our new resource officer, Eric Ritchie, is at our school almost every morning. And so that's been great. And then our bi-monthly rallies that we have. So our student learning goal, and this is something that we have strived for last year and will continue, is that 75% of the Carroll School students will meet or exceed the state benchmark on STAR reading and math. And again, that's really working on those kids that are almost there. They're almost there, and we just need to get them over the hump. And what can we do as a school staff? What data can we look at? How can we use our reading specialists and our math specialists to get the kids where they need to be? So I kind of just talked about our benchmarks, so we're going to use all our performance data and sit down during our PLCs and really dive into where we need to go with the kids. So we have our couple of teachers, Cara Berry, Sue Velagore, and then Tom Gould is our community representative, Mike Baresi, and then we have a new Laura Johnson is going to be, we have our first meeting next week, so she'll be joining in our school improvement council. So thanks. Any questions?
I actually have a couple of comments and questions since we're at the end. Thank you for being here, I appreciate it. For the school improvement plans that we've seen tonight, they're very consistent. You know, the same information is being delivered to us from each school, and I appreciate it. They're all very similar. And the professional practice goals, I appreciated those slides. Common theme is rebuilding your communities and those type of things. And, you know, I know how hard all of your staff and your teachers work. And one of the things, I was waiting till the end to see if anybody had done it, but no one had. In the past, we usually have a slide of budget considerations. Well, I think these are all wonderful, and they give us a lot of information, and I know that we all want to support you the best that we can. Something that I personally feel is missing is budget considerations. Maybe you don't have any. I'm not just,
Oh, no, I have some.
I'm not just picking on, pointing out to you.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that the rest of the principals that presented tonight will hear this. But that's something that we definitely use during our budget time. You know, this is, Ms. Smith, you know, you've been here long enough to know that this is where we go. What do you need? How can we help you? Mm-hmm. And then those are the things that we discuss during budget.
I think for this year, we did our school improvement plans at the beginning of the year, so we could show you what it is that we're working on just to improve and just based on all of our goals. And I think when we sit down as a leadership team for budget, when you start to meet with Dr. Vidala to do budgets, I would imagine that we'll all do what we need.
Do you feel that right now is too early to have that slide included in your improvement plan? Maybe based on the year you had last year?
Me personally, I do, because I feel for my school right now, I have a few people who are on maternity leave, some of my reading specialists, which I need a little more data. I need to see my kids in school another few months to be able to really decide what it would be that I would need for next year. That's just me personally.
I thought that might be the case. And I guess, you know, depending on how this board wants to move forward, I would respectfully ask that we get an updated school improvement plan. You don't have to come back and present, but maybe go back into
If I do, I'd like to be first next time. I'm just kidding.
I don't know how you drew that straw, but that's on you. You know, whether it's presenting or not, maybe just send us an updated slide and
Sure.
kind of include that one page, because I personally find that very valuable. That's how we kind of base a lot of our decisions and make a lot of our arguments, and
For sure, and I think we've had some changes too with our leadership who's steering our ship over the
Yeah.
last few years, and so we're kind of moving around how we do things, and I think Dr. Vidala has been really great to have budget meetings with us each individually. So I have gone and sat with him last year to tell him kind of what I need, and then he would kind of present to you. So I'm sure that we will do that again, and then we can certainly come back and either have a list, or we could each present, or
yeah,
however you'd like.
I would definitely appreciate that.
I could tell you that I'm sure every principal that's already been here tonight needs more.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's, I mean, this is really our first year back with the kids, 5 days, and, you
Yeah, I
know,
thought
we're
you
all
might
just
need
kind of
it.
getting ourselves back into the groove. I've been riding the bus home the last couple of days.
Are you driving it yet?
I'm
Are
not
you driving
driving it. I haven't gotten the license, but I have been riding it. So, you know, it's just different things this year than we've kind of ever dealt with in the past.
Yeah,
And,
for sure.
You know, I keep looking at it as, you know, the 5th graders are kind of, you know, almost still in 3rd grade mode, and the kindergartners are still little, and, you know, we're just trying to go back to those basics of rules of school, and,
Yeah.
you know, and so, you know, it's taken, I think, a little bit longer. I think, just for a conversation I just had with my kindergarten teachers, you know, one has been here for a while, and a few of them are new, and they're like, I can't believe how long it has taken to get them to line up. And I said, well, these guys have never been in school before. They've never even been to preschool, most of them. So, you know, now we're getting there. And so now the learning is coming, and now we'll really start to be able to look more at data over the next, you know, few months, even with our little guys, and see, you know, what else it is we need to support.
Yeah. Yeah, you have a lot of other challenges, but, so maybe let's, Dr. Vidala, if we can go back to this later on, once the principals get their feet on the floor a little bit better. I appreciate hearing from them directly what it is that they need.
Absolutely, and I think that having the school improvement plans this early in the school year is an opportunity for us to thank the committee for the budget that was passed in June, and to show how it's being implemented. And so we're planning for this year of how we're going to implement it, and strategically utilizing the funds that were allocated to us. And then in January, we sit down with all the principals and we talk about, okay, let's look back, and we have half a year's worth of data of how last year's budget has been implemented, and what do we need moving forward. And so in January, we will have an update from each principal. So this is really focusing on the connectedness with the families, building those relationships, getting people back in, and then getting the focus back on teaching and learning with our students. All of the things that we talked about last year during budget season is now you're seeing that being implemented. And in January, we will be coming back and saying, we've self-reflected, we've looked at things, and you know, here are some of the things that we're going to need moving forward. So I think you can definitely expect that around January.
Great. Mr. Amico wants to speak, but am I the chair right now? Go ahead, Mr. Amico.
Thank you. Through the chair, to all our principals who are still here, thank you so much for your leadership in bringing us back to normalcy, and doing everything you can to help your teachers and your students. I guess, and I agree with Ms. Carpenter, I know it sounds cliche, but the school committee is here to assist you and to help you and give you what you need to make your teachers and your students successful. That's all we're here for. If we're here for anything else, I don't know, I might have missed something over the last 5 years, but that's what I want to do.
And we all know that.
And okay. And so if anything comes up, please, through Dr. Vidala, let us know. And if we can possibly do it financially, we will do it. I think we've shown that in the past, this committee has. One thing that did come up with several principals, and I would ask, you know, through the chair, the mayor, and Dr. Vidala, our principals, a few of our principals had mentioned about getting our community back into the schools, getting our parents back into the schools, and as an educator, that's number one in education. If you can get parental involvement, you can get those kids to basically do whatever you want in school and succeed. So I'd like to see some ESSER money or some city money, if we could, being used in the schools to think outside the box and get parents back into, having parents being engaged back in the schools. And I know we have great PTOs and we do a lot of work through them. But I think it's on us as well as city and elected officials to help schools out and really focus on getting parents back. It's been a year and a half, and our kids have really suffered through this, so if there's anything we can do,
I think that's important on an educational standpoint, too. PTO is wonderful, and they do a lot of extra things, but having our IEP meetings in person, we're having our first, we do an ELL coffee every year. We usually do one in the fall and one in the spring, so that's in person next week, this week, Friday. So that's really important that parents can come in and actually speak with us, especially parents that don't speak English. So we'll have interpreters there and those kind of things. So I think on an educational basis, that is much more important. I was amazed at how many parents I had at Parents' Night Back. The cafeteria was full. So that's fabulous because people have been afraid to come. And we still, if parents ring the door, we'll still go out and get things. We don't, it's not completely open the way it was. I think we're trying to take precautions too. Our nurse's office is right there. We're trying to make sure, but those kind of educationally and academically, we need to get parents back in the building to be talking to teachers and seeing all the great things that are going on, for sure.
You and through the chair to Ms. Smith and the whole group here. And we have a great community and we have great businesses. And I just call on any of those businesses in the community to step up. They always do whenever we need something. And we really need to get back to normalcy. We need to get rid of these masks eventually and really get our kids to where they need to be. And I think not to sound cliche again, but it does take a village. It takes all of us to help the schools. So I just hope that we could all step up. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Miko. Mrs. Dunn?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Oops, I'm sorry. I'm going to follow up on Mrs. Carpenter's and Mr. Miko's comments. With Mrs. Carpenter's comments, I'm glad you spoke about that because I have a list here of things that will actually follow up on what she has said. First, I want to thank the principals and the school councils for preparing these presentations. That in itself is really so important because the school councils are a vital piece of the governance of our school district, and they are very important. They are actually formulated by law and regulations, and right now, I would like to request that these plans be kept open, that the school committee does not approve these plans yet because they are not ready for approval. And I don't know what the ones coming at our next meeting will be, but I will say, right now, you need to look at the composition of many of the school councils. They need to be in conformance with the state law and the regulations. You also need to make sure that those meetings are being posted, and I would like to request that when they are posted, school committee be on that distribution list so that we know when those school council meetings are held. In school improvement plans, we need to have in front of the committee and as a part of those plans, these are slides. This is a great presentation, but that is not the extent of a school improvement plan. You need to put in the vision and values of each of those schools because they're referenced in this discussion about making sure that our goal is to support the school core values, the school direction. We need to know what that is specifically, and it needs to be in the printed school plans. We need statistics of class sizes. Those should be we should be able to get those now that we've got the October 1st date out of the way. We need to make sure that each of the school councils meets if they have not already met. Mrs. Smith, thank you. Your meeting is right in schedule. They have to be held 40 days after the first day of school, and that's important as well. And the absentee data, each school has a goal to improve by a certain percentage on the absentee problems in the school, but as school committee members, we need to know, what is 10%? What will that look like? That needs to be in a school improvement plan as well. So what I'm asking is that those plans be prepared and utilize throughout the year to follow up, have another check-in, like in January, because this does impact on the budget. As school committee members, we need to know what the school's goals are and how to support that when there is financial need for programming, for staffing, whatever. That's why the class sizes are so important for our discussion. And I know last year was a very different type of a year, but normally when you get a school plan, the school council does a lot more than just make a plan for the future. They're always looking at the previous year to see how they did on those goals and where they stand, which goals. Some of the councils did do that. They had a goal from last year. They realized they wanted to follow up on that. That all needs to be spelled out in a school plan. So I want to make sure that that's being done, and that the principals all know that the door is open for those plans to come to us in a more complete fashion, for us to be able to use them as we go forward. So, thank you. But I do appreciate everything they're doing. They're working under hard conditions to really make up for last year and bring our students up to a good level. Some of those achievements are wonderful, and rebuilding the community is really being done by all schools, and they're to be commended on that, because I know that's so important for them.
Thank you, Mrs. Dunn. All right, any other comments? Thank you, Mrs. Smith. Appreciate your work. Okay. We need a motion to enter into executive session with the intention of coming back into a full meeting.
So moved.
Motion made by Mr. Hockman, seconded by Mr. Olympio. All in favor? That's a unanimous vote. Thank you.